Hello, I am here with Myrtle, and I'm gonna ask her a few questions about her life. So, Myrtle, what things did you do as a kid?
Well, what did we mean? I just went to school like every other ordinary person did in those days. Of course, we walked to school mostly, and if we were too far away, you might have a pony. But mostly we just walked to school, and there was nothing very exciting in those days.
Fair enough.
I can tell you when I went to school, the boys were taught to swim, and the girls had sewing lessons. They didn't worry if the girls drowned.
Because the fellas would be there to save them. That's why the fellas learned to swim. There were lifesavers everywhere back then, apparently.
Yes.
So, what were your parents' names and what were they like?
Well, my father's name was Gordon Howcroft, and he married a Nellie Gray, and we lived on a mallee farm, and it was during the very bad years. My father had to leave the farm and go to Melbourne to get a job, and he got a job in the post office there.
Oh.
And I only had one brother and one sister who was 15 years younger than me. And my mother was left on the farm with Bill, my brother. Well, Dad, we were so poor in those days, and it was the days when there was no dole, or no susso as they call them now, and the Depression, we lived on the Murray Valley Highway, and on the Calder Highway, I should say, and in those days they were what we called swaggies. You ever heard of those?
Yeah, I've heard of them.
And they'd walk from Melbourne to Mildura looking for a job with a swag on their back. And my brother rode a horse from Kilgoa to Mildura looking for a job. And they just call in and cut a bit of wood, or do a bit of gardening or anything for a billy of tea, and we might give them a couple of eggs or a sandwich or something. And they were very hard days, very, very hard days.
Fair enough.
But anyway, I think we were perhaps happier and safer. I don't know.
Well, I'd say you definitely felt a lot more safer back then.
Well, there was no such thing, as I said in that. If we heard a knock, we just sing out, "Come in." And we had a transport driver broke down opposite our place. He came from Sydney, and we had him for a week. Well, he got parts from Sydney. Just brought him into the house, and he was one of us.
Aww.
You know, it was a different world.
When did you think, when was the starting year where the whole world just started to change for you?
Well, the First World War, I think, and that's when I can remember my uncle going to the war. And I was 4 years old when he went, and I remember they dressed me up as a Red Cross nurse in the old Merrin West School, which I don't know whether you know where that is. It's between Kerrang and Boort. And I sang this Red Cross, we mend them and tend them, you know. I can remember it quite well, and I can imagine. I can see myself going out of that stage and singing.
Wow.
So I can remember back a long way. But I think the war changed everything. And then the poor soldiers came back, and times were really hard then. They were given, say, a block of land about 500 acres and set up to Manangatang or Chinkapook or something.
Yep.
And I had a friend, or knew this lady, a school teacher. She went up and lived in a tent, and she had 5 children in that tent.
Wow.
And the husbands used to just clear the land with an axe. And my grandfather, who lived at Merrin West, he actually dug his dam with a shovel.
Wow.
You know. And even when I was married, my husband dug a dam. He did have a scoop and a horse, but he dug it. You know, times there was no modern big tractors or anything.
No bulldozers, no...
Well, we all had horses in those days to put our crops in.
It helped out a little bit, hey. It helped out. Horses definitely were big,
Oh, well, they were, you know, we never knew anything else. There was no such thing as a tractor. And we had horses, and the men worked very hard then, you know, and So did the women.
What year were you born?
1912.
Wow. You are an inspiration. You really are.
I don't think so. I was born on the 18th of the 11th, 1912.
Wow.
Is that the year of the Titanic?
I don't know.
I think it is.
Could be.
I think it is.
That'd be really crazy if it
Yeah.
was. So, what do you think was the biggest,
Thing in my life.
what was the biggest change?
Well, the biggest thrill I ever had when I went to Government House and got the OAM. And then that was in 24, I think, when I got the OAM.
Yeah, I was gonna.
And then I got the next year I got the Citizens of Swan Hill.
What was that for?
This is the OAM.
What was that? How come you got that?
I did Meals on Wheels for about 20 years, and I did the op shop for 40 years. And I've got that from the old El Sharinga.
Oh, yeah.
I played sing-along and worked there.
Oh, yeah.
And that one's from the hospital. Just charity work. I did Meals on Wheels for years, and I did the op shop for 40 years. You've got to be nominated. But I think that was the highlight, perhaps.
Fair enough. You're an amazing person. So, we need...
I'll get a swelled head.
He's a lovely boy.
What do you think was the biggest change technology-wise? What was the thing that was wow, this is technology,
Technology-wise,
the TV, cars, what was the biggest thing to
Oh, well,
adjust
yes,
to?
the old TV, we had a wireless first. And Dad and Dave, I think you might have heard of that serials. They were the first ones, and you listened, with the ear that all the family listened to this old TV. That was exciting too. And electricity, that was a marvellous thing when we got that on our house, because we didn't, everything, I think now, everything was so exciting. I'm not going against modern life because that's what you're born to. But to us, every little thing was exciting. When I got married, I milked cows night and morning to get myself a little carpet square. And that was so exciting, And then we got... we used to have the old dunny down the back of the yard, I've got a lovely little poem. I do elocution, and I've got a lovely little poem about the dunny down the yard.
Can you tell us that, or you don't remember it?
Oh, I might. You don't want me to say it.
Sure.
Down the bottom of the garden, neath the pepper trees, stood a little old wooden building that was a retreat to me, sitting there on a sunny morn with the doors wide open wide, squares of newspaper hanging on the nail. Pity anyone who had a tender tale. The odour was no worry, for there was one that outsmelt all. It was a bottle of phenol, you would know what that is, on the shelf upon the wall. And always on the back of the door, in patriotic pride, a picture of royalty, an honour not denied. On a summer's night when the moon was riding high, to sit and gaze at the stars that lightened up the sky, while underneath the closet seat, around the pan so black, gathered all the spiders, huntsmen and redback. Frightened of the spiders? Well, they were frightened too. Swinging from their webs, they had a ghastly view. Oh, to relax on a well-scrubbed wooden seat that seemed to sit your bottom so very, very neat. Now we have a porcelain basin made of porcelain and a cold, hard plastic seat. You cannot even scratch your name. That'll do.
That's wonderful.
That was amazing.
That's wonderful.
Did you often change clothes as the times went on?
Closed.
So
clothes.
Yeah, clothes. Like, as time went on and everybody started wearing different things, did...
Yes, well, I do a little session here sometimes about memories. And we did one last Thursday about the change of, like, even the hairdos when the women, if you look back, all the old grandmas and that parted their hair in the middle and had a bun at the back, you know. And then they've got some of the styles are like it now. They got the bob or the shingle, and then there was the beehive. And I've asked this question a lot, and nobody can answer me. I think if you look back, have you got any pictures of your great-grandparents or great-grandparents?
Yeah, I have a few.
Now, why did the man sit down and the woman stand up in all those wedding photos?
To make the lady look tall.
That's the first answer I've had like that.
What do you... Is that why, or is that what
I
you
don't
think?
know. That's just what I think. That just to make it look like they're on equal grounds.
Oh, really?
Grounds? I don't know. That's just.
Now, that's something I never thought of, because I don't know how many I've asked now, and the man always sits down, the woman stands up with a hand on the shoulder.
Okay. That's amazing.
I don't know.
Now, if you can find out why, that's the best explanation I've heard. To make the woman look tall. Domineering.
Domineering. I don't know if that would be right, would it?
No, I think it's just more like you know, the fellas they're going to treat her well and show her the highest respect.
Well, you are looking after your Gindle.
Oh no! Yeah, make me watch.
Now, that's the best one. I'll be able to tell them next time.
A young 22-year-old has an answer, and yet he's not married.
Well, when you get married, don't you sit down.
Yeah. Well, we keep making him sit down today, don't we? Like, he's quite tall.
Like, what kind of music did you enjoy when you were young?
Well, that was what we used to, as I said, to sing song around the piano, and there was always music in our house, always. And on a Sunday night, you'd gather around the piano and you'd sing, and we've always had music in our house, always. My father was a wonderful singer, and he used to go to Ballarat, and then I was a singer in my days too. I used to sing everywhere. I was a mezzo-soprano, and so there's always been music in our house, and in those days you'd have a little band in a town, they'd call them an orchestra. And I used to play in that around different places, Quambatook and, Nullarbor and all around there.
Oh, yeah.
But there's always, even when I was here too, always had a piano and always had music, loved music.
Do you play piano also?
Yes. Yes, I played in this orchestra, dear.
Yes. Yeah, orchestra. Yes.
Somebody on a piano and somebody on a violin and somebody on the drums.
There was always somebody on some instrument playing away.
But we danced, and they'd have the old accordion.
Oh yeah, the old accordion. I actually have like this little small old one at home that I tend to have a little goof around and go, ooh, and I imagine what it would have been like back then.
Yes, that old accordion. Then they got the button one, and there's people come here. You know what's name is Steele, and they still play. He's 80 and he plays the sax. I love the sax.
Oh yeah.
Graham Steele. Is that Graham Steele?
Graham, yes.
Yeah.
Well, they actually,
Yes.
when we left Kilgoa, they actually played at our send-off.
Ah.
And they weren't married then.
Oh, they weren't married because they've been playing together for 50 years, and they've been married, I think, for 60.
Yes, they had their wedding. They come up here and play, but I've known them for years and years, and I said, he's the youngest looking 80-year-old I know, Graham.
Oh, he is,
And I
yeah.
love the sax. My eldest son plays the sax, and my Peter, the one that was just 70, he was in a band called the Roulettes.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
a photo of them there. And he got his first car by playing they used to go around the different towns playing, he used to play the banjo.
Oh yeah. Oh, the old round banjo.
The old hall here that they call the cafe down here was really the old motor hall.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, well, my son had his kitchen tea in that old motor hall.
Oh.
There was no supper room, there was nothing there. And I think I sang every soldier that came home from the war, a welcome home. So, and I'm disappointed they changed the name of that.
To the Paragon now, yeah.
Yes. And anyway, it was Peter's birthday last year and he took Eve and I down to have a look. But there's nothing left of it that reminded. They're going to put a big photo of that in memorabilia things. But there was, I reckon the floor was the only thing I could recognise.
The Paragon Cafe was here too. Do you remember that?
Oh yes, and it was the caravan.
Yeah.
The
cafe
in those days. So if we came from Kilgoa up to Swan Hill, that was a whole day, you know, and we very seldom ever came, but you'd always go to the Paragon.
So do you remember like Barry's?
The Barrys at Kilgoa?
Yeah.
Oh, what they are, Kilgoa.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Yep.
And the Barry girls, of course, I know all them, they came to see me.
Yeah.
Oh, Barry's belong to Kilgoa, don't
Yeah.
they?
Yeah.
How are we going? You must be near the end of it.
No, not for a bit, unless there's not much unless you're cut on time.
Oh no, I'm here till...
Okay, I'm just
I'm here forever. I've been here over 3 years.
Oh,
3 years.
okay.
Were you at home?
I lived by myself till I was 100. My husband's been dead for over 20 years. And I lived by myself till I was 100. And I was still driving my car, I still had my licence when I got here. But I had this operation on my hand here, and it wasn't a success. And the boys, I haven't got a daughter, unfortunately, and sons are not quite like daughters. You know, they don't come and say, Mum, your whiskers want coming off, or don't do your hair like that, or something like that. But anyway, they were worried about me. I couldn't peel my vegetables, or I couldn't hang my clothes on the line, and dishes and that. So I knew all about Alteringa because I still call bingo here. I really knew what I was coming to, and I couldn't drive my car. That was dreadful.
That would have been annoying.
I still had my licence when I came.
At 100?
Now, that was funny because when I was about 97 or 8, the boys said, Mum, I don't think you should be driving the car, you know. Your reflex is not the same, and I thought about that. And then I got a letter from the Country Roads Board renewing my licence, and they said, age has nothing to do with it. It's your physical and mental abilities. So I promised the boys I wouldn't take anyone with me. And I would live down in Brook Street so I could go along the park, and as long as I could go to the bank or the library or RSL, which I went for years and years and years. And I did that. No, when I came in here, I still had my licence.
Do you get out? Do you still go to RSL?
Until this year, I'm the oldest member of the RSL. Until this year, there was 8 of us old girls, and we went to RSL every Sunday and every Wednesday. I did that for I don't know how many years and years. And it's only I've got nobody left to go with. So it's only this last 3 months that I haven't been going every Sunday, and every Wednesday I get a taxi and go down. And but there's nobody left to go with now. And we used to go to Bendigo once for 12 years. We'd catch the bus at the Fish and go down to the Bendigo Theatre every month.
Yeah.
And we used to go to all the big shows in Melbourne by bus, you know.
Yep.
So I've been very lucky.
This is a question I came up when we were discussing what questions to come up with. But what was it like if you did you watch The First Man on the Moon?
No.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I suppose I did on telly. You mean, Oh, more or less. I don't remember much about that. I wasn't so. I suppose I wasn't very interested.
Oh, okay.
She was too busy with the orchestra.
Yes, I was too busy playing the in the orchestra.
Oh, fair enough.
That's a funny thing. Once, not long ago, I saw on the telly this man was playing the musical Saw, you know, the ordinary, and they were amazed. Well, years ago, there was a chap up at Sea Lake, Wally Gregson, and he used to play it in Denny's orchestra back in all those years.
Wow, okay.
The old saw, just an ordinary saw.
What do they play it with?
A bow, like a violin bow.
Wow, that's interesting.
That's going back before I was married. What else? Man on the Moon, now I remember something about him.
Okay, fair enough. What did it feel like when all of a sudden colour was coming to television?
Oh, I suppose I was a bit amazed, but it came gradually, didn't it, you know? We were so happy with just over telly. We were so happy when we had to do away with the old dunny and there were more exciting things.
Yeah, they were more exciting, I think, that's true. The inside toilets, Kai, because everybody had an outside toilet, so you can imagine hot in the summer and cold in the winter. And
all the messages people would like
They won't record this, but I had a policeman and his wife come up from Melbourne. They'd never been in the country before, ever. And we got very friendly with them. And Ola came out to my place one day and she wanted to go to the dunny. And she gets halfway down the garden path and she turns around to me and she said, "You, with your carpet square and your crystal cabins and your dirty, stinking old dunny." And I said, "Ola, there's no need for you to go to it, dear. There's all those gum trees over there." See, the Melbourne people just couldn't understand.
They couldn't understand it, yeah.
Even electricity, they can't understand that, can they?
Yeah.
What else?
Oh, come on, you must be nearly finished. But you've solved about the bride and bridegroom. I'm
That's
very
the main
happy.
thing, yeah.
He's made history.
Yes.
So, like, what kind of card games did you play? Like, I know you played a lot of card games, so, like, what were they? They just like the...
Euchre, rummy, 500.
Oh, yeah.
If you had to have a few. We still play. When I first came here, there was only 4 here who played euchre.
Really?
And we played, but one of the ladies passed out, and it's gone. I miss that very much.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, of a Friday night after RSL, we used to go home to my place or go to somebody else's place, and we'd play 500 or rummy or there's one the soldiers used to play. It's something like 2 up. I can't think of it now. And, no, we always played cards. That was our main entertainment if anyone came. That and cards was about our main entertainment.
Fair enough. So what was like the 60s like, where everyone was like very big on colour and wanting peace and happiness for everyone?
Oh, I really can't just say the 60s, I don't know. We did a session the other day about the old grocer stores and the modern grocery stores, and that was very, very interesting because my son was left at the grocery store, and in those days the grocer always wore a white apron tied at the back, and biscuits came in tins and flowers kept in bins on scrub floors, and bacon was carved straight from the leg and vinegar poured from a keg, and if you're lucky get some boiled lollies, and then it was like a little friendly thing. You'd be talking to the grocer, the price of wheat, it was going to rain, and it was like a little friendly thing. Now the supermarkets, you put through like a mob of sheep. Nobody knows. There's no connection like the old days. It was really, the grocer was your friend.
Not much interaction.
No, well, you
these
don't
days.
now, as you know, you go into. I had a chap come to do me. Well, I never stop talking. I better shut up.
No, we like it's perfect.
It's awesome.
Well, the other day
Right.
I got these ear things, the damn thing, and he come and he has all this new technology, and he had this lap thing, you see, and he was saying, "Isn't it wonderful? Isn't it wonderful where we're going?" I said, "Well, I don't know, it is." And he said, "Why?" And I said, "You realise now, us old people, we still won't be able to write a cheque. You know, and you go in the bank now. Once upon a time, when we got our bank books, it was all handwritten. You imagine how many people were employed. And everything new that they get now that's done automatically does someone out of a job." And I said to him, "In my day, no married woman ever went to work." He said, "What?" And I said, "No married." He said, "What did you do all day?" Well, did Myrtle let go what we did all day. Like even washing day was a full day, you know, and they had some, you know, you had to go out and chop the wood and light your copper, and we made our own soap, and then they had some young kids come up to interview me about the olden days, and I was trying to tell them about washing day. And if you don't remember, there was a copper, and we had a copper stick that used to, you know, put the clothes up and down. So I'm telling them about this, you see, and I'm with the copper stick, and I'm telling them about them, and they're looking at me. And I realised they thought I was talking about a policeman.
Oh.
Banging him up and down in the
Yeah.
But
Different language has changed too, hasn't it?
well, my mother, see, it was true. In my day, we only had a bath once a week. We really did. We never had a bathroom. And of a Saturday night, I don't know who had the last one. But if it was cold, in front of the fire, and you'd have a bath once a week. And a dose of castor oil whether you needed it or not. But my mother was telling her grandson about it. And he said, "Oh, Grandma, please don't tell anyone that." He said, "They must think you're so dirty." She said, "All right, Paul, if you had to go out the wood heap, chop some wood, light the copper, and get some hot water, would you have a bath every day?" Oh, that was different.
It's very different, isn't
So much different.
You see, and it would take all day for washing day because we had to light that copper weight, and then we had to scrub the clothes and blue them and hang them out, and then they'd come in. Everything was starched, like men's. There was no such thing as drip dry in those days. Everything. So they'd come in and drip down, and the next day was ironing. And we'd get down on our hands and knees and wash our floor and polish it, you know, with the rag.
Yep.
And when we churned our butter, you know, it'd just be, the cream would just be like water almost. And I did it with my hand in a dish. Make the butter into pats and you'd sell it for,
How long did that take?
oh, ages. It all depends.
You know, because like,
And you see, then when we did our hams, we had every other day we had to do them with salt and saltpetre to kill them. We used to even pickle our eggs. There was a thing called keep egg, and if you did it now, I'm nearly sure, if you did an egg with, say, Vaseline, that you'd keep for ages and ages, and this keep egg was sealed all the... So if we were short of eggs, we'd even pickle our eggs. And in the hottest summer, we'd always kill a pig for Christmas, and we'd pickle all our meat, and in a kerosene tin, if you know what a kerosene tin is, because a lot of people don't.
I think I've heard it before. I'm not entirely sure on that one.
And there's a form of fat on the top.
Oh,
And
yeah.
we'd hang them so the sun would get them.
Oh, okay.
And then but we never lost any meat, and we all had all our own bacon, you know. And you'd pack this butter after you made it, and you'd sell it at the store for $1. And, it was really all day. And our men worked so hard, but they always had to cook breakfast because they had to get up, get the horses and harness them before they came into breakfast. I laugh now at the farmers. I say they don't work like, they press a button and everything goes.
Yeah, pretty much.
And, it's just a different world. But I'm glad I lived when I did. I'm very happy I lived when I did. Because I really fear for my great-grandchildren. I really do.
Yeah, I tend to get a little worried about the future. What's personally your biggest worry?
For my grandchildren, well, I don't think they're safe any longer. As I said once, everybody was just never heard of anything like that. Well, even here in Swan Hill, I see in the Guardian this morning they found all these guns. And a lady who works here, her uncle's place was broken into the other night. He was sound asleep. And they came in, and fortunately he lay still. And they found the chap down Lake Bogan. He's one of the most wanted chaps. See, the world's not safe now. There was no such thing as drugs and so much drink, And I never had to worry much about my boys. They might have a few beers. I had a beer myself. I love my beer. This is my little story. I'll tell you thousands of stories.
Hey, that's what this is all about.
But I always had a can of beer every night before tea.
Okay.
Loved my can of beer. And anyway, when I couldn't drive the car, I had to get a taxi. And he was a New Australian Indian. And he got talking. When he found out how old I was, he said, "What do you think could you come to that age?" And I said, "Oh, I have a can of beer every night." He said, "You do?" He said, "Where can I get it? What brand do you use?" You ever had a bowl of soup and a can of beer at the same time?
No.
No, well, you wouldn't want to. We had no refrigeration, no ice. All we had was an old Cool Guardy safe, which I don't suppose you know what it is. It's an old safe with hessian, and they had flannels in the top, and the flannels water came down the flannels and kept that cool, and that's all we had.
What about children? How many children?
Only had 2 boys, and my eldest one had his 80th birthday last week.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And 77 years ago, I was in the Witchproof Hospital in the labour ward having Peter, and the daylight was just breaking, and the nurse came in. She said, "Mrs. Hooper, I've got bad news for you. Germany has just invaded Poland."
Wow.
So that was 77 years.
Same day.
77 years ago.
Wow. Were you, do you remember, like...
I can see now in my mind, I can see the daylight just coming through that window.
Yeah.
In the Witchproof Hospital.
Wow.
That's history. And I only had one great grandson, one grandson, and he's Jamie. You've ever heard of Jamie's salad dressings? He sells it. He was a chef.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But he sells these salad dressings now, makes a living out that.
So is his last name Hooper? His last name is Hooper?
Yes, Jamie Hooper.
Jamie Hooper, yeah.
And he lives at Lake Bogan. He does a wonderful, he goes all over, he's got markets all over, almost all over Victoria and everywhere, and he sells these salad dressings. He does a very good business with that. Yeah. And my other son had 3 daughters.
Oh, okay.
And Trev had Jamie and Tracy.
It's just amazing to hear.
I could go on for
I bet you could. I bet you could. I mean, with 100 years, that's like you've lived through an entire century.
Well, that's what I said. I've lived through 2 centuries, really. As I said, the buggy, horse and buggy. And when you think, when we had to go out, we'd have to go down the paddock and catch the horse if you were lucky. and harness it and put it and go. When you come home, it had to be unharnessed and fed. And, in our days when they used to build the haystacks, and I really have lived in two worlds. And I really think the old world was the best, although I had to churn it up and have an old dunny. I don't want to go back to that.
Not to the old dunny, yeah. What was your husband a farmer?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
And
The boys were farmers too, and they only sold their land last year.
Right.
We met and we married a long time ago, and we worked very hard, for wages were low. We had no television, no wireless, not even a bath. All we had was a cold water tap and a loo down the bottom of the yard. There were no carpets on the floor, no trips abroad, but then we didn't have to lock our doors. There was no need for security doors in those days. If we heard a knock, we'd just sing out, "Come in." And though they were strangers and in some sort of plight, we'd gladly offer them a bed for the night. We all had wood stoves, we made our own bread, we churned our own butter, we patched the kids' pants and darned our men's socks. We pickled our meat and cured our bacon. We bottled our fruit and made jam and pickles by the score. We had no refrigerator, no ice. All we had was an old Coolgardie safe with flannels dripping water down the sides. And when a dust storm came, oh boy, how those flannels turned to mud. There were no beauty parlours, no permanent waves. We had to be content with what nature gave. Then our children came along. There was no pill in those days, but we brought them up without government aid. They were safe then to go and play in the park, and old folk were safe to go out after dark. There were no drugs, no Valium, no LSD, and we cured most of our ills with a good cup of tea. There were no muggings, no robberies, there were nothing to rob. We thought we were rich with a couple of bob. Our entertainment was simple and cheap, a Saturday night dance or an odd night at the flicks, a game of cards if anyone called, but a sing-song around the piano was enjoyed by all. And that was life when Myrtle was young.
wonderful.
So beautiful.
You can have
Thank
that
you.
copy if you want it.
Oh, I'm gonna ask just one more question. I promise. Last question. Last question. I promise. Okay.
Two giggling Gerts, you two.
Well, he makes me, it's his fault.
Yes, blame him.
What was the movies like for you when you were young?
Well, we never had any. Now that's strange, because I can remember the very first movie we went to, and we were on a dairy farm, and of course once it came 4 o'clock, you had to go home no matter what. But we went down to the old hall at Appin, and this screen, and all it was a flower opening its petals like that. There was no sound. And we were amazed, this flower opening, like that. And that was wonderful. We were really excited about that. See, anything made us excited. Now the young ones, nothing excites them.
Oh no, there has to
Nothing
be.
excites them.
There has to be
And
a
then
reason.
the next ones they came was, I've got a big poem about, see, I do all these poems, and this is about, then the first movies came, there was always somebody playing the piano, you see, and on the screen, and that was marvellous, and they were laughing. When it was romantic, he'd be playing something, it wasn't.
The old Charlie Bucket movie.
Be a battle, he'd be playing some romantic song. But, and, the young ones would sit up the back with the rubber over their knees, and others would keep an eye on them. And, no, but that was the very first, just this flower opening. And that, we were amazed.
How long did it go for?
Oh, I can't remember.
Like a minute, a couple of minutes?
No, I think we went down the hall sitting up here, I don't know how long. But that was the very first And then when the movies came in, that was really exciting. So really in our life, everything was exciting. Whereas now, I had a neighbour come to live with me in Trebrook Street, and he was in his 20s, and not often young people bother with old girls, but he used to love to come in and hear about the old days, when there was swaggies and we made our own bread and everything. And one day he said to me, "Myrtle, why didn't you complain?" I said, "Sky, who would I complain to? We're all in the same." Everything we got was so exciting. But now, could you see any young one going up the Mallee and living in a tent and having 5 kids?
Right.
Or even going, we had an old house and it was paper, the Hessian paper. And when the mouse plague came, you can estimate.
Yes.
But who'd go and live? I remember when we shifted from Appin up to Kilgoa, and we were that excited because Mum came home and said, "It's got a window that opens out," and we couldn't wait to see it.
Wow.
And we just have a little thing on the veranda, one rainwater tank. And when I was doing the kitchens down here, Kayla, who works here, she just couldn't believe we never had a tap in the kitchen. She couldn't believe it. "What did you do?" We say, "We've run out."
And so how many brothers and sisters?
I only had one brother
and one sister.
and one sister who was 16 years younger than me.
So are you the eldest of all 3? Yeah.
And my sister died very young. She was an asthmatic, and she wouldn't give up smoking. But she died in her early 50s. And my brother, he's quite famous in a way, Wilbur G. Howcroft. He's a poet, and he's got a plaque up at. Do you pass me that?
Sure, I'll get it. Give me a sec.
And he wrote this poem about our mother, but he's got a plaque at Longreach Hall of Fame.
In Queensland?
Yes.
Okay.
You want me to read it?
You can read it, yes, if you like.
Okay.
Or I can read it.
I'll have a read.
That's me with the Melbourne Cup.
Oh, that's awesome.
That is the Melbourne Cup.
Show us.
The Melbourne Cup.
Oh, did Nolene bring it in?
Oh, of course, because his grandfather was here and I knew them so well.
Oh, you knew Nolene's dad too.
Oh,
Yeah.
I used to play bowls with his grandmother.
Yeah.
And Edwards used to come here all the time. And he used to call and see me. And when the cup came here, he said, "It's got to go up to Myrtle." So I had my photo taken of it.
That's so cool.
But my brother has had lots and lots of books. Wilbur G. Howcroft. You want to
Do you
read
want to
that?
read that?
Yeah.
one?
Yep. Though she held the teacup firmly in the.
I think you ought to start up here.
Though she held the teacup firmly in a gladdened but steady hand, while she told about the hardships when they cleared their virgin land, her voice was far from even, for we both were well aware that her pioneering partner sat no longer in his chair. But she spoke of clearing Mallee, of the stumps they had to shift, and the shearing winds that followed filled dams and drains with drift. There were droughts, she said, aplenty when the air was full of sand, but I guess that's part and peril of a life upon the land. And she talked about the rabbit and the mouse pledges that had seen, plus the hooper swarms that gobbled every darn thing colored green. How the night wind softly whispered through the eucalyptus trees, and the good years when the riot grass grew up level with their knees. Then she spoke of Mallee sunsets and the yellow harvest moon, till a cup began to rattle from the shaking of the spoon. But her eyes glowed as she told me of the days we had been there, as we sat alone together by that cold and empty chair.
There's a plaque up at
It's amazing.
long reach.
That's amazing.
Well, but
So, where did you and your brother, was your mum or dad a rider? Where did you get that from?
I don't know, and he only went to the local school. He never went away to school, and he didn't actually start writing till he was quite, getting up in years.
Right.
And he had terrible trouble getting his first book published, which you do. But once he got them published, and there's another, I've got another big book there, and he's got a lot of his poems in, by Gary Orr. Does anyone remember Gary Orr?
Right. Yeah, well, Nolene's a very good friend of mine.
And Nolan she used to come and sit with the father in the finish every night for tea.
Yeah.
And then Darren would pop in and just say hello.
I've been always a country boy.
Yeah.
Boy, always lived out in the countryside. So at first I lived in Horsham for a little while when I was young, and then we mostly lived at my pop's house out of Moreton Plains, the grasslands.
You like the country then? Well, you see, we're talking about little towns, how they've deteriorated, Well, Darren brought Myrtle back on the...
Yeah, absolutely.
But even in Kilgoa, all the old homes are occupied, but they're from people in Melbourne come up and buy them cheap, but they're no good to the country. But the other day, I thought I'll keep my memory going, I'll try, and I counted up 80 families that lived in Kilgoa. Kilgoa as a town.
Why, how many is now?
Oh, hardly anybody.
Yeah.
Not any of the old farmers are gone.
Yeah.
There used to be a hospital and a doctor.
Yeah.
Wow.
And they had operations there. There was 2 boarding houses. There was 2 grocers, grocer and drapery.
Yeah.
And there was 3 fruit shops, 2 cafes. You can't believe it, can you?
Yeah, no, it's...
And, a railway station and a station master and a teller and a ganger.
Yeah. What's a ganger?
A ganger was a person who goes up the line. They used to have a little thing that worked like this.
Oh,
They go
yeah,
up and
yeah,
down
yeah,
the
trolley
line,
thing, yeah, right.
seeing the railway lines were right. So there was a station master and a home and a porter and a ganger. And they had residents over at the... when you think it was real... They even had 2 golf courses.
Wow.
I can't believe that.
So did the train line ever get used for passenger, or was it only for freight and...
Oh no, it was a passenger one. It only went as far as Nandali, I think,
Oh, yeah.
where it stopped.
Yeah.
But no, and they had a railway dam. That's where the boys went to swim while the girls learnt to sew.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I still can't sew.
Can you swim? Can you swim now?
No,
Oh.
I can't.
Oh. You missed both those lessons. I'd rather swim than sew, I think.
No, well, we never had any
chance to
option.
float.
We laugh about it now, but no, I can't.
All right, well, thank you, Kai. Do you want to thank me?
His name is...
Kai.
Yes.
I won't forget you. It's been very pleasant, very
Nice
nice.
boy, isn't he?
You all have been very, very patient with me.
Well, we've enjoyed it. Thank you so much.